We begin this morning with developments in the war between Israel and Hamas. Palestinian officials in Gaza say hundreds of people were killed in Israeli airstrikes overnight. Israel says these strikes were aimed at Hamas targets and blamed the militant group for a lack of movement on the release of hostages. Now, we have team coverage for you on this morning. Natalie Brand is at the White House. But let's begin with CBS News contributor Robert Berger, who is in Jerusalem. Robert, what is just the latest information we have on these Israeli strikes in Gaza?
Well, Israel has launched dozens of airstrikes all across Gaza, and they've been deadly, a very high casualty toll, according to Palestinian officials in Gaza, including both Hamas fighters and civilians. I can't give you exact numbers, but it's in the hundreds, according to Hamas. And they've been targeting all over Gaza. According to Israeli media reports, they've also killed a number of Hamas political leaders in Gaza. And this is really just the beginning. The Israeli military saying that this is going to go on until Hamas releases more hostages.
We should note it's been a number of weeks since Hamas has released hostages and since Israel has released imprisoned Palestinians. Why then has Israel decided to launch these strikes now?
Exactly that, because it's been about 3 weeks since the last hostages were released, 2 weeks since the ceasefire expired, that 6-week ceasefire that was part of phase 1. And Israel was saying, well, Hamas is enjoying the benefits of a ceasefire, but it stopped releasing hostages. And that's the impasse. Israel wants the release of at least some hostages, according to a U.S. proposal, and Hamas has not been willing to meet that demand. So Israel is now starting to negotiate under military pressure.
And there is at least one American held hostage by Hamas currently. So where do things go from here?
So Steve Witkoff, the U.S. envoy, had proposed the release of 5 living Israeli hostages and 9 dead hostages in order to extend the ceasefire through Ramadan, which is happening now, and Passover, which means about another 6 or 7 weeks. But Hamas has only been willing to release 1 American hostage and 4 dead bodies. And so that's the impasse. And Israel decided to go back to war to try to pressure Hamas to release more hostages.
All right, just past 1 p.m. in Jerusalem. Robert Berger, thank you for that update. Let's cross over to the White House now. Natalie Brand is tracking the response from the Trump administration. And Natalie, the White House was given notice by Israel before it resumed strikes in Gaza. But help us understand then the administration's position on these overnight strikes.
Good morning, Errol. We are expecting a lot more reaction today, but so far we have a very short statement from the National Security Council. Let me read it to you. It says Hamas could have released hostages to extend the ceasefire, but instead chose refusal and war. As you noted, we learned from the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, that the Israelis consulted the White House ahead of this strike. Here's more of what she's told Fox News. Take a listen.
President Trump has made it clear Hamas, the Houthis, Iran, all those who seek to terrorize not just Israel, but also the United States of America will see a price to pay. All hell will break loose. And all of the terrorists in the Middle East, again, the Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, Iranian-backed terror proxies in Iran themselves should take President Trump very seriously when he says he is not afraid to stand for law-abiding people.
Now, over the weekend, we know that Steve Witkoff had said that Hamas must release any living hostages or pay a severe price. So in light of these latest strikes and the breakdown of talks that occurred over the weekend, we'll have to see if there's anything that can get the sides back to the negotiating table, Errol.
And Natalie, the other big headline we're watching where you are is President Trump is expected to speak with Russian President Vladimir Putin today. What is the White House telling us about the content of what they'll discuss and when this will happen?
Yeah, Errol, U.S. officials tell CBS News that this call is expected to take place sometime between 9 and 11, although it's unclear, whether it will last the entire time. I guess it depends on how well it goes. But from what President Trump told reporters, he expressed optimism that a deal is still within reach here. And he also signaled that concessions over land and power plants is expected to come up on the call. Now, he didn't give specifics, but we know that the Zaporizhzhia power plant has been a focal point in this war. That's the largest nuclear site in Europe. It was seized by Russian forces in 2022. So it's likely that that is something that will be discussed. Again, this phone call, high stakes phone call, comes after Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff, who's been involved in all of these negotiations, traveled to Russia to talk to Russian President Putin in person and try to really push this ceasefire deal that had been negotiated between the U.S. and Ukraine. Witkoff says the fact that this call is happening signals some positive momentum. Others, though, are skeptical that Putin is ready for peace. That includes Ukraine's president, Volodymyr Zelensky. He posted a new message on social media saying that pressure is needed to make Moscow accept that the war must be brought to an end. Errol.
Yeah, we'll keep watching that closely. Natalie, thank you.